successful professional men create the love, sex, romance, and relationships of their dreams. Today, in response to an EDGE goal within our Enchanters meetup inside of our 6-week Make Love Easy Accelerator program, I'm responding to one of my clients. His goal is technically to kiss a new girl, a new woman, within the next 2 weeks, right? And that's what we determined was his edge of practice, given his previously existing skills and how easy it is for him to meet and connect and have conversations with and get phone numbers from. Like, that's just the direction that he wants to go. So I'm going to tell some quick stories and give you the recipe for how I created and manifested sex partners inside of 36 hours, right? Technically, they showed up within 24 hours, and then I, went out on a date with them later on, but having them in my life, like being able to create. So the first thing you have to know is that anything the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. This is from Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. Now, how does that work? And why does that work? Well, what you want wants you when you step into faith and allow yourself to have the end result of that thing that you desire in your imagination long enough, consistently enough, deep enough. The subconscious responds to rhythm, repetition, deep feeling, and ritual. So if you practice standing in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, to reference the work of Neville Goddard, you are literally becoming a vibrational match for what you desire. And people, circumstances, opportunities, synchronicities, serendipities will simply show up. Now, it's subtle because there are 3 ways in which you will shift if you're willing to step into faith, putting your attention and belief onto a desirable outcome, stepping into anticipation, expectation, belief that, hey, this has already happened in my imagination. I'm just here and excited to discover how it came about out here, right? So the 3 ways that it shifts us are, number 1, it changes our self-image. We don't get dropped out of the womb with the self-image of a millionaire or a massively successful like ladies man or a social rock star or whatever it is that you want to create. So you stepping into the image, into the identity of the person who can have that thing, choosing to become that man in your imagination, clears a path and opens a space where it becomes possible. Second, if you're standing in the feeling of your wish fulfilled of having this thing, there's a portion of the brain called the reticular activating system, which notices opportunities in the environment to take action towards having what you want. And if you believe that you can have it, you're much more likely to stay in the game, focused and concentrated long enough to take the right actions, to discover and discern what the right actions are for you to create it out here. So in manifestation, there's masculine action and there's feminine action. Masculine action is, I'm going to go to a place where I think the kind of woman who I'd like to hang out with is, right? I'm going to talk to 10 women a day. I'm going to spend 1 to 3 hours just hanging out with women and having conversations. And here's the thing, oftentimes, it will look like you doing that. In the stories I'm about to tell, we did the recipe first. It didn't look quite like that. It was interesting. The feminine actions are spending time manifesting, spending time in your imagination, spending time configuring your energy, your emotion, your vibration, your intention, your mind to be a willing, able, ready receiver for the gift and the creation of this thing. There's an infinite potential in the so-called quantum field, inside the model that Chris Duncan talks about in You're Not Broken, right? Where the nature of the behavior of light actually, and this goes back to the double slit experiment, I think in the late 19th century, where they'd have light that they would project through a screen. And depending on whether or not the observer, the mind of the individual was observing it, it would go through this screen and show up like a wave or show up like a series of particles. So light is both a wave and a particle, or it has the capacity to appear as both in experimental data. But which of those shows up specifically in the data is determined by our focus, concentration, and attention on it. So focus creates your structure. Structure creates your behavior. Behavior creates your reality. I'm going to say that again. Focus creates your structure. Structure creates your behavior. Behavior creates your reality. So you can choose to believe something is possible for you, or you can choose to believe it's not possible for you because you've got special circumstances or whatever limiting beliefs, right? What you focus on grows and expands. And what's right is always available. What you want is always available. So is what's wrong. So is what you don't want. It's up to you where you put your focus. So once you put your focus on a creative structure, stepping into the context, the energy, the vibration, the belief that it's possible for you to have this thing that you want, then you will naturally act like that person. You will naturally stay in the game long enough to have that person or have that result show up. You will naturally have magic happen. So this is what I did. I stood in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I made a decision, made it my chief aim, focused on it, long and consistent, did it. So in the case of the usual means for manifesting, sometimes I'm manifesting like a relationship, and that, for whatever reason, I can spend a couple of weeks right before bed or right after waking when the subconscious is most pliable, and I drip drop the image and the experience, the feeling of having that into my subconscious mind. And then that goes deeper than just normal during the day sort of imagination, activation, and visualization and daydreaming, right? And you don't even need that much. In my experience, if you remove all resistance, remove all doubt, and that's the biggest piece. That's why somebody would be in a 6-week program like the accelerator we have, in order to clean up, clear out, let go of, recode, and release the doubt or the programming of preachers, teachers, family, friends, media, and government, especially the dating and so-called seduction industry, where you have to do A1, A2, A3, S1, S2, S3. You got to go through all these phases and things to have someone show up, or to do the song and dance to prove that you're worthy of love enough to have the person decide that they want to be with you. No, fuck all of that, right? We're here to make it easy. We're here to make love easy and make making love easy. And make making love easier too. So I made a decision. I cut off from all other options. I said, hey, this will be. I don't know how, and I'm not worried about how. I'm putting my attention on the fact that it is, and I'm allowing the how to show up for me. He who has a strong enough why or belief that it's possible, the how will show up. Or you'll be able to overcome anyhow. Meaning, let's say you go out and you start talking to women and you get rejected, quote unquote. They're never rejecting you, they're just rejecting the possibility of being with you in that moment. I never take a woman's first response as set in stone. It's just expression of what she's thinking or feeling at the time, and that's almost always subject to change. Literally, one of my best relationships came from her and I kissing. We made out just a little bit, and she was like, yeah, there's no spark here. And I was like, okay. 2 weeks later, because I had expressed myself powerfully, she realized, you know what? I really do like that guy. So she had rejected me, and she came back, and then we had some of the best sex of my life. And she was technically monkey branching, like she was coming out of a relationship that she wasn't fulfilled by. There's a whole conversation there, but to bring it back to the point, you want the stories. You've been waiting 9 minutes for the stories. So in 2017, fall of 2017, I was on a juice fast and I was driving a truck. Not much cash flow as a coach yet. And so I say juice fast because there are things you can do to clean up the transmitter and receiver of energy, frequency, intention, and vibration that your body-mind system is. Cleansing is one of those things. Fasting is another. Vibration plate I have right here is yet another. Doing breath work, doing meditation, doing some sort of physical activity that calms your mind like yoga, right? There are a whole world of things. And if you are interested in having some tools for that, I have tools for owning your state of being, about 48 of them that I've collected over the past several years. well, actually decade in transformation, message me directly, and I'm happy to share those, from trainings to techniques to tools that I have found that gets me into what I call the high flying disc state. The state where because it's easier to believe in possibility. Generally speaking, if you're feeling good about your life, about yourself, about the world, and that's really a big part of the technique, is to, in The Strangest Secret, they say, you get what you think about most of the time. You become what you think about most of the time. Most people aren't thinking of any one thing, any one chief aim most of the time. So they don't get most things, right? Manifestation requires focus over a certain duration of time. And then once you've focused enough, you'll build the muscle, and you'll go from conscious competence, where you have to focus on it, and to unconscious competence, where it just happens easily, happens quickly. So I was on a juice fast, meaning I was drinking juices 3 or 4 times a day. That was all I was doing, and I was driving, and then I stepped into the feeling of my wish fulfilled. Now, mind you, I had already created sex before. I had already, through conventional means, discovered and proven many times over that I am worthy of the love, touch, connection, and sex that I desire. There's nothing bad or wrong about that. There's no shame or judgment that I have to put on that desire or having it. So those are spaces where resistance might creep up its head, and like whack-a-mole, and like, hey, no, you can't. It's like, cancel, clear, no, delete, delete. You can have this, right? Everybody repeat after me. Having the love and sex I desire is my birthright. All right, so feel free to focus your attention on that, because it'll create a structure within which behavior, like doing the manifestation work consistently, daily, regularly, will happen. And I didn't even do it for many days. So in this story, the Juice Fast 2017, I stood in the feeling of my wish fulfilled in my imagination for having a hot redheaded sex partner for about 20 minutes. Focused thought and intention. You get what you focus on most of the time. And I didn't even focus on it most of the time. For you, you may need to spend the better part of the day, like a couple hours or whatever. The more time you put towards it, the more the universe sees that you're serious about aligning with that intention and that thing coming in. So one way of articulating the technique is feel good now, believing you can have the thing that you want, and do it for a long enough duration with a high enough intensity, with a high enough belief and faith that you can have the thing, without resistance and without attachment to time, right? So just accept it will come in whenever it comes in, and it doesn't matter when it comes in. And if you're practicing within our system of gaining points for achieving goals, like, let go of that. Act as if you will receive it whenever you receive it. And if you're doing it consistently, it will show up speedily, like it did with me. So one day later, 24 hours later, I let go of and I released completely the intention and went about the rest of my day during this juice fast. A woman who I was attracted to, a hot redhead, who I had met through a sex-positive community, who I had wanted to have sex with and had expressed that desire to. She messages me, she texts me and says, hey, I don't know how to say this, but I've been fantasizing about you. And I was like, what? So I reply more or less immediately, oh my gosh, that's funny because I've been fantasizing about you too. And then within 2 days, she invited me over to her house. We had sex. It was good. Of course, fantasizing about her, it wasn't specifically her, but it was like the energetic qualities of her. So I was fantasizing about somebody, basically like her. And it was a stretch for sure. But there was resonance, and she enjoyed the mutual co-creation. Second time I did this was a couple years later. I'm in a polyamorous relationship and I put hot redheaded sex partner, freckle-faced, all of this on my vision board. And I also put on my vision board, I want somebody who's better than I can imagine. And the person who showed up was in fact better than I could imagine, but was not a hot, thin, redheaded sex partner. We were having great sex, by the way. It was amazing. I love this woman to my dying breath. But possibly afterwards. Wrote a book about her, in fact. Okay. So I'm in the relationship with that woman, and we have a an agreement that I can do whatever I want. And I'm not, at that time, that was the agreement. Like, I will do whatever I choose and not codependently contort my expression in order to people please with her. Because I declared it up front, straight up, super clear. Hey, I'm polyamorous. That means I will allow myself to be authentic in my expression to my desire sexually and romantically or emotionally to other people than whoever I'm dating. So I'm not gonna get off this train because you feel something about me being with someone else. Like, that's not my business. But if you choose to be on this journey and this adventure, this train with me, then I'll give you tools to help you to deal with whatever triggers come up, because I believe it's a spiritual path. This growth through jealousy, through attachment, through resistance, through fear, through comparison and shame and guilt and whatever. And she benefited a shit ton, even to the point where this was like February or March 2021. We've been in the relationship maybe 2 or 3 months. I get horny for this image of a partner, and I do the technique basically, and it wasn't even for a very long time. It was maybe even 2 to 3 minutes after I'd done some clearing work with a sex coach, sex and manifestation coach actually, and within 24 hours, a woman on Facebook and I started connecting, and she was a woman who I had been attracted to the year before, either the year or 2 years before, and I invited her out. And we went out, we had dinner, radio, coffee, and beer, Ben White, Austin, Texas. And at the end of the night, I invited her back home and we had sex. Now, mind you, while the sex was physically satisfying, it wasn't emotionally satisfying. And the quality vibrationally of the person who I had attracted, like, it fit my overall intention, but I hadn't really refined my intentions at that point. Because once you know that you can have anything that you want, you're gonna have a desire that gets more precise. You're gonna be like, oh, I want a woman who's psychologically stable and healthy and able to entertain multiple partnerships and maybe interested in emotional connection beyond just the sex, right? Because we all want emotional connection beyond casual sex. Casual sex is great, but there's a innate craving and movement in that direction that we all have, because we all have hearts and souls. And anyway, long story short, those are my 2 stories. If everybody say, if Lewis can, so can I. All right, that was my proof. That to me, I tell my students and my clients, borrow my faith until you build your own. You don't have to borrow my faith. Borrow my certainty. If I can create sex within 24 to 36 hours, you can create a kiss, sir. Speaking to my client right now. And thank you for being the provocation and the inspiration for the creation of this. If you all enjoyed this and you want more like this, feel free to comment below, like, subscribe, share, and we have a growing free Make Love Easy community where I answer questions like this on Facebook that is about 40 people strong and growing daily. So comment below, hashtag community if you want in for that. I love you all so much. Mwah, it's been a blast. Have such a beautiful day.